Welcome to another edition of the Radio Coffee House Show, where Jesus meets coffee meets talk radio. And the next one starts right now. How's it going, everybody? Clint Armitage with the Radio Coffee House, and do we have a show for you today? This is a powerful show. It's got so much emotion. It's got intrigue. It's got a lot of stuff to it, and it's because it's a real life story, and it's about human trafficking. It's about assault. It's about manipulation, and how this could even happen to a Christian. And so we're going to talk to our guest today, Amanda Johnston, who's going to outline her life and give us a timeline, all these things that happened to her, and how she got caught into it, and how she was able to get her way out of it with the help of the Lord, and also with the help of her cousin, Stephen Coleman. And Stephen is also in the studio today, and he's going to tell us his side of the story and how he felt and what he did to be an assistance to her in order to help her get out of this thing. And so, again, this is a powerful story, but it is more of an adult episode. So if you do have little ears around, I would say don't let those little ears around while you're listening to the show, or go ahead and pop in some earbuds, because again, this is a more of a adult topic. And in the description, you're also going to find a email, which is Amanda's email. So if you're dealing with something similar, if you need help, or if you know someone that needs some help, pass on this email or contact her yourself. She'd be more than willing to help. All right, I guess it's time. Let's get into this. All right, thanks for coming back, everybody. Thanks for listening into the Radio Coffee House. My name is Clint Armitage, and we have another awesome show today. Got some incredible guests here. Two guests, one by the name of Amanda Johnston and another Stephen Coleman. I'll introduce them in a minute, or I'll have them introduce themselves. But today's show is kind of a serious topic, and like we said in the intro, if you have some younger ears around, you might want to not have them around while you're listening to the podcast here, because we're talking about human trafficking, and obviously it's a very serious topic that's been, around forever. However, now we're getting to get more information about how these things are getting, how this whole thing has gotten out of control, and how people's lives are being really, really affected by this topic. And so today's guest, Amanda Johnston, has a book out called Lusting After Love: Caught in the Bright Lights of Darkness. And it just got released, and you can find it on Amazon and different booksellers like that. And I'll have her talk about that more towards the end of the podcast. But what I wanted to do was get into her life and kind of look at how does this happen, and hear her story, so that we can, help other people out there with that are going through these times with human trafficking being such kind of a heavy topic going on in today. And then we also have Stephen Coleman, who is her cousin, that was also involved in this whole situation as well, and he'll be talking about some things. But first, let me have them introduce themselves, and then we'll go on from there with Amanda's story. Amanda, go ahead and introduce yourself.
So hi, I'm Amanda Johnston, and like he said, I just released my first book, basically explaining how I went from a 4.25 high school graduate going straight into college to, within a very, very short amount of time, I had gone through pretty much every aspect of the adult industry.
And then Stephen Coleman, go ahead and introduce yourself.
Hey, I'm Stephen Coleman. I'm Amanda's elder cousin by exactly 1 week. I say that because we grew up, there's 16 of us cousins overall, and we grew up very, very close. But Amanda and I being so close in age, I think we had a different type of bond and a different kind of growing up and connection, which kind of led into different aspects of her story, where I was fortunate enough to be involved in a couple pivotal key spots. So I'm going to be quiet for the most part and just chime in whenever it gets to those parts, and hopefully we can look back and have some laughs and some cries about it, and it's, see what happened and help other people get free from it the same way that she did.
Well, again, I want to thank you two for coming in, because obviously this is a serious topic, but it's something that I know both of you are very, interested in getting out there to help others that are either getting into the industry or have already been in the industry, and maybe they're starting to see a different, way of thinking where, hey, maybe this isn't the path for me, whether they be adults or even kids or whatever the circumstance is. So, Amanda, what I'm going to start off with is kind of ask you to go through your life, and that's kind of what this whole episode is going to be about, is your life. And I want to start from the beginning. Tell us from the beginning where you grew up and kind of your background, and then we'll talk about different highlights or different points in your life and how it all came about. How did these things happen? Was there specific incidents? Was there a progression? All these different ways that people can get lured into the industry, and that's kind of what I think the format we can go with this show. So again, thank you for coming by and giving your story.
Yeah, no problem. I'm happy to be here. It's like a bittersweet happiness. Not necessarily happy I went through all the stuff I went through, but I'm happy that I can use my story to bring things to light that people don't see. Like my dad is an advocate of the book because I have never touched hard drugs in my life. I am a social drinker, so I wasn't an alcoholic going through this. It was a purely psychological thing that happened with me getting into the industry. But like you said, we'll talk about my backstory first. So I am the eldest of 3 girls. I have a unofficial foster brother, as we call him. My sister dated a guy in high school, and we kept him around even though they didn't stay together. And he has some pretty big parts in the book, why I bring him up. Then, let's see. So I was born here in Carson City, Nevada. My dad is a military man, so we were bounced around just a little bit, not anything too crazy. We were stationed in Sacramento when I was very young. My youngest sister was born in California, so I was born in 88. She was born in 93, so we didn't bounce around much. I grew up in California. I went to school in California. My parents had me when they were in high school. They graduated Friday, got married Saturday, and have been together ever since. The only rocky parts of their marriage that I ever witnessed was my doing. When I went from... I was an athlete my whole life. I was a gymnast, and then volleyball in high school, and track in high school. Didn't cause a ruckus outside of, staying up too late and silly kind of stuff until I turned 16. And that's when things basically just went AWOL. I just turned into a whole different person out of nowhere.
Wow. Oh, so let me ask you this. We are a Christian podcast, and I believe you are a Christian, correct?
Yes.
So did you grow up in a Christian family? How was that? I want to know a little bit about that as well.
So my dad's side of the family has bounced around different faith beliefs. My mom's side of the family has all sorts of different denominations on that side. My mom was raised, I believe she told us, Southern Baptist. And my high school sweetheart was Lutheran, so I was really starting to go to church a lot with him and his family. We'd found a church that my parents and I liked. Then we moved, and we took a long time to find another one we liked. So I grew up going to Sunday school. I remember being baptized when I was younger, and I remember the water being so freaking cold because it was just this clear tank that you climbed into. But we didn't really go to church every Sunday. We've always been believers. We've always prayed before meals, always been practicing. But I want to say I remember as a young kid being very active, going every Sunday, and then a big gap of not. And then when we got to my hometown, where I went to school mostly, we found a church there that we were very active in.
All right. And so let's start off kind of I think I heard you say you had a high school sweetheart.
Yes.
Do you want to start off with there?
Yeah, so in my life, I've only dated 3 men, and I've married 2 of them. I was engaged to my high school sweetheart as well. So I'm pretty committed when I go. So I met my high school sweetheart. In the book, his name is Justin. So for just his identity, I'll keep him as Justin. We started dating my sophomore year. He was 2 years older than I. So we went, I got to go to 3 proms. He was an athlete. We were both in the FFA. Just, like I said, he was Lutheran. We went to church every Sunday with his family or mine. Just didn't see anything wrong. We were going to get married. We were going to have kids and just be just like his parents. And then all of a sudden, I met another guy, piqued my interest, and I just abandoned all of that.
So was there something, what was it about this other guy, and how does this kind of play into your life story?
So he was actually my track coach in high school. He was my pole vaulting coach. He was a few months older than Justin, so he's about 3 years older than me. He was tattooed. He was completely different. I mean, Justin was blonde hair, blue eyes. He's called Hans in the book. Hans was dark hair, dark eyes, tattooed, pierced, totally different than anything I had ever seen, really. 'Cause back then, tattoos weren't what they are now.
Right.
Yeah, so it just piqued my interest, and before you knew it, I was confiding in him about my relationship and different intimacy type questions. And before you knew it, I was more curious of what life would be like with him than with Justin. And it started to build a wedge, obviously. And before you knew it, I didn't want to be married with kids and going to the same college with Justin. And I wanted to be partying and seeing what this, turned 18, now you're free kind of lifestyle would be like.
So were you still in high school during this time, or did you graduate from high school?
No, I met him my senior year, and I can't say we dated necessarily in high school. It was very, very close to me graduating, maybe a month or two, and we were, holding hands, unofficial type stuff, but I was not separated from Justin.
So obviously you said it created a wedge. And I mean, I'm trying to get a profile of this Hans guy. Did he care about that, or was he trying to be actively creating a wedge into your relationship?
I want to say it was more behind the scenes than anything. I didn't see that he was active at the time, but once he knew I had an interest, he pushed it. And we would do things like he would call me and say, I'll walk the dog with you, and we'll just be friends. And next thing you know, it's more than friends. And we could have so much fun together. I've already a grown up kind of stuff. And then, so I ended up leaving Justin. And that night I went back because I was like, wait, I messed up. And when I met with Hans to let him know that I don't think I could do this, I'm going to go back to him. And he told me, and it's in the book, that I want to say the exact line is, I feel like I'm losing my chance at true love. And so I was like, oh, but I'm so comfortable with Justin. I gotta go back to that. And within 2 weeks, I had told Justin, you know what, I don't want to have kids right now. I don't want to do this. And so I told my mom I didn't want to be with him, but I didn't want to break up. And so she's like, well, be honest with him. Tell him that your life goals have changed. And as soon as I started telling him that, he cut me off. And that next day, Hans asked me to be his girlfriend. And there I was.
So do you think Hans was being truthful, or was it more manipulation? What do you think at that time, or what did you perceive?
At the time, I perceived it as he was really, truly interested in a future with me. I think I was 17. I didn't know any better. He had turned 21 during the track season. So I was like, I could just go and experience life with this guy. He knows what he's doing. He's going to be a firefighter. He's in college. He's got all these life plans. And I just jumped off the ledge and went with it.
And so over time, did you look back and say that was manipulation, or that was truly do you still believe that was his true intention, was to, be the love of his life?
It's hard to say, actually, to be honest. Look, writing it down, I can see the manipulation. Looking back on it, it was kind of like, well, maybe. But finding out that his sister-in-law was already in the industry, maybe that was a little bit more manipulation than I realized.
Yeah, and so, I'll have you continue on with your story here. But the reason why I was kind of asking questions around that is, if we're looking at, women that are about that age, 16, 17 years old, with even an older man that's only a few years older, did you notice anything, even a little bit later on, did you notice any tactics, anything that was utilized at that early stage to get you to swoon you, but also to start leading you once you found out, like if you found out about his sister being in the industry, did you see anything that kind of started leading down that path?
Looking back, I can. And it's actually the wonderful woman who helped me write my book. So what I did was I journaled everything out, and she helped me form it into the actual book. And she said from day one, you can see the manipulation from the outside looking in. So I was a pole vaulter. I hurt my ankle, and I wasn't able to do a lot of the practicing during the week so that I could actually be performing at the meet. So he would have me demonstrate the drills. And I was the only one that would do that kind of stuff. I didn't see that other than like, whatever, I'm being helpful because I'm a people pleaser by nature. And she said, that is when he started giving you the attention that you felt that you were missing. Didn't think about it at the time, but we've since talked about it. And like I said, I was a gymnast, and Stephen can attest that it was, Amanda, show us this flip. Amanda, show us that. Show us this new trick. And then I had a career-ending injury, and that went away. So without even realizing it, other family members and I have tried to kind of dig into why things happened and why he was able to wiggle his way in. That attention was lost. Now suddenly I'm the star. I get to help do this and do that for I've got that attention back.
Okay, Stephen, I'm going to turn to you on this. Like, did you see what Amanda's talking about back then?
It's interesting. Just from the outside perspective, I didn't know really Hans at all at the beginning. And so most of my perspective is looking back on things also. I knew Justin. I'd seen him, known she was with him for several years. And then, all of a sudden it's like, okay, she's with this other guy who's more of a bad boy, like kind of attractive bad boy type. And so I guess not really even just looking at her story in an isolated chamber, but looking at the industry overall. It seems like a lot of the girls around that age, the way that they're brought in is kind of this bad boy with a sweet side. This like super sensitive, like, I'm there for you. I'll do this for you. I'll take care of you. I'll protect you. You're my princess. You're my queen. So it's this very like, it's hard to say, like she was saying, if he saw her during track and was like, this is the girl I'm going to grab and manipulate, or, I genuinely feel like he saw her and liked her and even loved her at first and was very much like, I like this girl. She's sweet. She's sensitive. I want to spend time with her. And then I think just because of certain things in his childhood and this girl that was his sister-in-law that was in the industry, I think once things started progressing in the relationship, he started seeing the opportunity and then started taking advantage of it. At least from my perspective, that's kind of what I don't necessarily think it was his intention at first.
Okay, so thanks, Stephen, on that. Now, Amanda, do you think, is that a standard tactic that is utilized, like Stephen was saying, with the whole bad boy with a sweet side and how they kind of use that to manipulate? Is that something standard, or was that just, do you think that was just him being him, Hans being Hans, and then it turned into something else? What's your thoughts?
I want to say yes to both. I do believe that is a standard tactic, because why wouldn't these girls want like the trust? I'm going to take care of you, because obviously something's missing. And it's not necessarily, daddy didn't hug me enough as a child, because I had very affectionate parents. I don't remember anything really that would have pushed me into the industry from my childhood. But I liked getting the attention. I liked being the apple of his eye on the track field. I got jealous when a new girl vaulter came in halfway through the season. So I was like, okay, there's something more to it when I'm getting jealous of another girl. And when we got together initially, it really was, I'm going to take care of you. We'll make things work.
So that's something, I guess, in your makeup, in your personality. But do you think that's also something that younger girls just naturally are drawn to? Because, being a teenager at that time, do you think other teenage women are drawn to that type of thing as well? Or was it just kind of you think?
I think that it's ingrained in most of us. If you think of daddy's girl, you want your daddy's attention because you're daddy's girl. So now you're a teenager. You're rebelling against your parents in one way or another, even if they're your best of friends. You're still like, I want my space. I'm independent now. But you still in the back of your mind want that attention. So I would say that it comes in just instinctual for girls, and you don't even realize it. And that's why it's so easy to be manipulated, because You don't realize that's what's happening.
Okay, so let's go on from there, and you can kind of pick up where you left off.
So we had just gotten together. So there was a lot of people saying, don't do this, don't get with him. And the more they told me don't do it, the harder I did it. That's unfortunately part of my just personality. I hate it, but I love it at the same time. So my parents actually went to Nevada for Thanksgiving. I had to work, so I stayed with my aunt that lived in Sacramento, told her that I was going to my girlfriend's house, and Hans's roommate was an aspiring Playboy model. They asked me to help with the photo shoot, be her assistant, and then to be in some of the pictures. So being 17, I was 2 weeks, one week, it was probably his birthday because he's usually on Thanksgiving. So I was a week away from being 18. So I'm like, what's the harm? By the time anybody sees us, I'll be 18. We'll be good. I'm not going to do anything too crazy. I remember sitting on the bed in just some boy shorts and no top, but I'm sitting with my back to the camera and she's leaning over me. So I'm like, still harmless. It's just my back. She sends me the pictures. I looked at them, deleted them. I should have known better. My uncle's a computer genius that used to hack me when I was doing my homework from, I think he was in New Mexico, and he would type on my homework. So I should have known that I couldn't delete these pictures. And of course, my parents had a feeling that something was up. They've never liked Hans. They were always against it. They found the pictures. And my mom was like, I've rubbed that back for 18 years. I know that's you. It led to a full-blown intervention. And they tried so hard to tell me, this is going to lead you down depression, pornography. Like, he got you to do these pictures and you would have never done these. Stop, cut it, don't be with him. All that did was put a shield up for me. And I was like, you guys don't care. You don't love me. You're not going to let me do whatever I want to do.
Now, how long after high school was this? Because if I just want to figure out, because he had a Playboy model roommate. I'm assuming that roommate has been with him for a little while, so he knew him for a little while. So
yeah. They had actually gone to school together. So it was one of his high school friends' wives. And let's see. So I didn't move out of my parents until the February after I graduated. So this was in November. I was probably still in high school.
Wow. Okay, so you're holding hands?
No, I'm sorry. I graduated at 17.
Okay.
So I graduated in June. This is November of that year.
So we're talking within 5 months, you went from just barely knowing the guy to taking these photos.
Correct.
With some other person that you didn't know well, obviously.
Yeah.
Okay.
I just known her from going over there and visiting kind of thing, having dinner. I probably only met her 7 or 8 times, but she was cool. She was beautiful. She was living her life to the fullest, and I wanted to see what that was kind of like.
Was it mostly you making the decisions, or do you think you got a little manipulated?
Definitely got manipulated into that one because I was taking modeling and acting classes, actually. My parents paid for that. And at 5 feet tall, I was never going to be a model. I can tell you that. They told me that. And so they were pushing me, the school was pushing me to do like commercial acting and stuff. And when I found out she was going to be a model, I didn't know it was for Playboy yet. And it was an album cover that she was doing. And I was like, well, that would be really cool and fun. Why wouldn't I want to be on an album cover? From there, it went to just a really, really awful, rocky relationship with my parents. My sisters, I pushed them away. And the 3 of us were the 3 amigos. And then we just I felt like everyone hated me. I felt very isolated. Nobody liked what I was doing. My best friends weren't hanging out with me anymore from school. And not that they didn't, but I'm seeing it. And they were saying, we don't want you with this guy. If you're going to be with him, we're not going to be around. This is all bad news. So I started going to his house and hanging out with his parents. And they accepted me and immediately as like, you're the sweetest little thing. We love you. His little sister started calling me her sister right away. I spent all holidays with them. A lot of my free time was there. And then I remember asking to go with him to a New Year's Eve party. And I wasn't even allowed to go to football games my freshman year of high school. My parents were very strict with that. Just because, I mean, what trouble are you going to get into at a football game? But no football games, no dances, unless I was on the team that was playing. That was it. They still met my friend's parents at 17, no sleepovers kind of stuff. So it was really out of sorts for me to ask to be going to another town with Hans, to his brothers, to go to this New Year's Eve party. Mom and Dad said, okay, we're gonna trust you. Be back at a decent time. Let us know when you get there and let us know when you're heading home. And then they told Hans they wanted him to come to church. And he said, no, I'm atheist. And that was huge for me. I was like, okay, we'll see how this goes. That could be interesting. That led to the downfall of my practicing my faith. Like I said, I've always been a believer, but that completely stopped all of my practicing at that point. So I go to this party, and this is where I met, I don't think we put a name in Destiny. Destiny is what we had her name. So this is where I met Destiny. Still did not know that she was in the industry. Just this beautiful, confident, just full figure, just beautiful woman. And at this point, she was, late 20s, so she's quite a bit older than me. And she introduces herself, says she's going to go upstairs to change, comes down. I meet his brother or stepbrother and everything, and she comes down in lingerie. And I was like, whoa, totally blown back. Never seen anything like that in my life. I mean, the photo shoot was the closest I'd ever been. And as the people started arriving, they're all in lingerie. I did not know it was a lingerie-themed New Year's party. I guess they always had themed parties. That's when I found out that she was in the industry. As the night progressed, things got a bit rowdy. And there was lots of things that I had never seen before. And I'm going to spare the details because there could still be some little ears, but it's all in the book. And I got very uncomfortable. I'd never seen girls doing things with girls. I'd never seen guys encouraging them. There was a lot of drinking. And so he noticed that I was uncomfortable, and I was like, it's time to go. And that was my first kind of experience into the whole other world, I'll call it. Because it was just so new to me. But it was intriguing at the same time. It was a really weird feeling because I wanted to be that confident. I wanted to be like, I've always wanted to be one of the popular kids kind of thing. And that was just something that I was like, whoa, I don't know if I want to be a part of this, but I kind of do at the same time because it's so different.
So I want to backtrack just a little bit, and I want to ask because this is obviously a very pivotal point. Mm-hmm. Like this is the tipping kind of point. It seems like it's getting there. Mm-hmm. So could your parents or your sisters or your friends have done anything different to have got you to think differently at that point in time?
100% no. I honestly think even if they were supportive. So I have my one aunt and my granny have always been, I can say supportive because they stayed in my life. They stayed involved. They didn't necessarily support the decisions I was making, but they never made it feel like they didn't, if that makes sense. So even with them being like, honey, we love you and we want you to have fun, but I don't know, maybe there's some truth to mom and dad. Wall up instantly. I was going to do what I was going to do, when I was going to do it, how I was going to do it, regardless of anything.
Okay, nobody could have stopped you from doing it because you've already made up your mind at that point.
Yeah, even I looked over at Stephen and he was nodding his head saying no.
And so I want to turn to Stephen on this. Now, did you see these things start to happen? Did you see a change in her behavior, her attitude, her outlook on what she wants in life, that kind of stuff? What did you see as her close cousin?
Yeah, so it's kind of interesting from my perspective, seeing, because I knew she was with her high school sweetheart, and then all of a sudden she's with this other guy. I don't know this other guy. I didn't actually meet him. I don't think I met him until like pretty far into when she was already going down the road. But so all I knew was the perspective from her parents and other people that like, this is not a good dude. I had no idea what she was actually doing until quite a while later. So there's parts of me where I come back into the story once I know what's going on and know the path she's on and how far she's into it. But at the beginning, all I knew is this guy's potentially bad news. He's completely different than her high school sweetheart, and her family, like immediate family, is not necessarily cutting her off, but saying things like what she mentioned. We can't be involved with you if you're doing this stuff, or we're giving you this advice and you're not taking it. And just, I guess, kind of to backtrack too and give a little more context, her story really resonates because when you think of trafficking in general, a lot of the perception of it is you've got girls that have no families, that are runaways, that get picked up by a pimp and then get forced or pushed into the industry, which absolutely happens. But the part that doesn't really get talked about is a lot of the time girls come from really well brought up homes, loving parents, loving families, and they'll meet some guy, and it's like what she said, it's either, a girl who didn't really have a dad in the picture and is looking for kind of a father figure, and they meet that in a gentleman who ends up being a pimp or trafficker, or somebody that is a daddy's girl that loves that attention, and then all of a sudden they're getting it from this man instead of their dad, and it's this sweet, like, just slippery slope that ends up taking him down the road. So it's kind of just to squash the notion that it's always these runaways and troubled people. Sometimes it's just, Amanda. It's a young, innocent, sweet girl who gets caught up in the limelight, and all of a sudden she's seeing things and intrigued by things, and next thing you know, it's too late and you don't even know who you are anymore.
Okay, so at this point, it's still early on. You're not really seeing it all. I'm assuming all you're thinking is, hey, I don't like this guy. That's about it.
Yeah, I know nothing about him other than what I've been told.
And he doesn't know a lot about it because my parents put out that my extended family agreed with them. So I cut everybody out except the one aunt and granny. A lot of my family had no idea what was actually going on in the home outside of my mom and dad being like, what the heck happened? She just woke up this weird kid one day.
And so now you're at this pivotal point. It seems like it's on a teeter-totter because you said this, you're very uncomfortable at this party. I've never seen this stuff before, but then you're also intrigued. So it looks like a very pivotal teeter point that you're at right now. So go ahead and expand on that.
Yeah, so from there, it turned into, I have now decided I'm going to stay with Hans. I'm not going to listen. Told my mom and dad I was moving out. And this is where I say the rocky part in their marriage. This is the only time I've ever seen my mom and dad start to fight and almost divorce. And my granny later on told me my dad called her every day and was like, Mom, what do I do? How do I save this? I don't know what to do. And the harder they tried, the harder I fought. So I moved in with Hans, and we moved in with the Playboy model initially, and we slept on the floor until we found an apartment. We find an apartment, and I'm not able to work. Not able, but I hadn't gotten a job yet. I was going to college. Dropped out. I had a full free ride 4-year university. My dad is a disabled vet, and I just stopped. I gave all that up. I was going to be forensics photography, had all these big hopes and dreams, and that was it. I didn't have enough time to spend with Hans. I wanted to go to these parties. I tried to rush for a sorority. That was so out of my character, and I gave it all up. And I remember it was Valentine's Day, so this is a year later. I'd moved out February after I graduated. So we're still in that very short time frame. And I'd gotten just a card and candy kind of thing. I didn't have a lot of money at that point. And I came home, and I had this beautiful diamond and ruby necklace that he bought me. This big fluffy duvet cover that I was jonesing for at the store. And he had spent several $100s on me on my first Valentine's Day. And so I did get that. I'm being treated like a princess. He is going to take care of me. He's going to school. He's doing his firefighting tests to be certified and all that. And then I want to say it was March. Now we're not able to pay our bills all of a sudden. And so I'm going to start looking for a job. And I went to Home Depot, and I was one of the people that would walk around and ask if you wanted to set up an appointment to get better air conditioning, just fresh out the gate, never really had a job outside of my parents' restaurant. And I had told him we'd watch Coyote Ugly. And I'm sure most people know what the movie is, but for those who don't, it's a movie about a girl, very similar. Good girl, just starts bartending at a bar where they get on the bar and they dance and they do crazy stuff. And I told him that I thought that looked like so much fun. And he suggested I do an amateur night at the local strip club. And that's what I did. I wasn't comfortable at first, but I was like, you know what? No harm, no foul. My friends and family don't talk to me. They're never going to know. It's just one time. I'll try it. And it was awful. I didn't know what I was doing. I was clumsy. It was just miserable. So instead of giving up, because like I said, I don't do well when you tell me I can't do something, Destiny came and showed me how to do it. She came down to the club with me the next week and cheered me on. Well, I took first place in the next contest and was immediately offered a job. He says, you can make your own hours. You can make a lot of money. Your parents won't ever find out about it. Nobody you know goes there. What's the harm? Now I'm dancing.
And so you got some affirmation because of the first place win on that in that competition then, because you got help from more of a professional dancer. Okay.
Yeah, she was what's called a feature dancer. So in the industry, what they'll do is they'll bring the film actress once a month to the local clubs and have a quote-unquote featured dancer. So she showed me some moves, and that's where that came in.
Did anything change after that point? Was it now looking? I mean, obviously that affirms some of your thinking about, whoa, I'm loved or I'm liked or whatever. But when the information about the money, was brought to your attention, was that something that motivated this, or was it still more just the emotion of being loved or liked?
I would say it was both. I like being able to contribute. I don't like being someone that just sits there and tags along. I want to be able to pay my own way, essentially. And even now as a stay-at-home mom, I struggle with that. So I had that. And then, like you said, I had the affirmation. Well, now Destiny thinks I'm cool, and her husband thinks I'm cool. And her husband and Hans were the ones that went and bought me all my outfits. And they picked out my stage name. I didn't pick it out. They were doing things like, oh, you look young, so let's pick a name that sounds young. And for the last name, like, look at all these cars and what's popular in Google searches. And so we really get your notoriety that way. And I was just like, you guys are professionals. I didn't know any of this. I would have just gone with it. And they were like, you're young. We're going to play on that. So they actually, I remember watching them cut up jeans into little skirts for me and telling me, this is what you should dance to. And over time, I formed my own stuff based on just, you get in a job, you start doing things your own way kind of stuff. But the two of them really, looking back, I didn't see it because I just thought they were being helpful.
But obviously it was more than being helpful. It was a business, right? Making money. Okay. And so as you started to do this, actually, I have a question about money, because that is one of the draws to this industry is the money. So can you give me an idea of what we're talking about? What kind of money are we talking about here?
So it would depend on what you were willing to do. So some of the girls would only be on stage and do the private dancing. Other girls would be willing to partake in what they called the live shows, which is where the crazier things happen and you can make more money. So I worked, obviously weekends are good. I could bring home anywhere from $800 to $2,000 in a night, depending on what I'll call them opportunities I was willing to partake in that evening. During the weekdays, it could be anywhere from $50 to $1,000, just depended.
Wow. Okay, so if we're adding that up, how many days a week did you do this?
I probably worked 5 to 6 days a week. Yeah, it was a lot and it was quick. But you got to think back. We're talking 2007. We're not talking inflation of now. So it was a lot easier to make that quick cash and be like, okay, I work 5 days. I'm only going to work 2 days this week. But you had schedules. You had to let them know when you were coming because they would have pictures on a slideshow there's like a big TV in the building, and that was who was there that night.
Can you paint a picture of these places or is it one specific place, or did you like contract out to other places?
No. So I didn't, there are clubs that do contract out like that. And I did the amateur contest at those clubs, but I worked strictly at one, and I don't know legalities and stuff, so I'll avoid names just to be safe, but there was one main one in town. All the other ones were known as like the shisty kind of, the ugly girls work there kind of thing. So God forbid, I'm not going to see myself working there. So I worked at the main one in town, which is where everybody would go because it had that reputation. And so they actually did billboard advertising and website advertising and stuff like that. That's what they were the ones that would bring in the feature dancers and have stuff like that.
And so you're now working the club as a regular, and so you can go on from there. What happened from there?
So one of the other things that looking back is another eye opener is the pictures that I had mentioned. They had the rotating slideshow. Well, they had a club photographer, so they would get those pictures free. So I went ahead and did it, and Hans suggested that we do family pictures because we had just gotten our puppy. And so we start out with some cutesy pictures, and the next thing you know, it's pictures of me and him laying on a bed. And now I'm in just my jeans and a bra. And then now he's topless. And the one that sticks out the most to me that I don't know how I didn't see it, and it really paints a picture of what was going on, is imagine I'm down on my knees with my hand on his leg, and he's standing, and I'm gazing up at him, and he's looking at the camera. And that is the picture that he framed on our wall. Looking back, I'm like, oh my God, he was my idol. There's actually, at this point, I want to read a paragraph that I pulled from the book. It said, I was eager to find out what it was like to be with someone new and exciting and older too. I would constantly try different ways to see him. I'd never done drugs, nor had I felt the need or desire to do them. It was Hans who was my drug of choice, and I was addicted. I was idolizing this man without realizing it. And that picture, looking back, was like, that was just my normal. Why wouldn't I be on my knees looking up at this man? That's not a normal family picture.
No, and for that to be the choice out of all the pictures you took, because the original...
I'm on the floor with the dog.
Oh, wow, the dog's...
Yeah, our dog was in the picture on that. And at one point, he had actually put leashes.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, I was looking back, I'm just like, how did I miss that?
Mm-hmm. So where were you at this point with your family? Still not talking to them?
Not talking.
Still? Okay.
Not talking. I'll say it was about 7 of the 8 years that it was... I saw them at my sister's graduation. I saw them at random holiday functions. But for the most part, it was very, very minimal communication with my entire family.
Okay. So it's obvious they didn't know what to do, and you didn't want to involve them. Mm-hmm. So did you know that they were struggling? Did you know, I mean, what was your thoughts on their, mindset and the way they were approaching this?
That they hated me and could never understand it. That they had so much hatred for this man that nothing we do would ever be right, so why even try? But
was that correct, or was that just an assumption?
100% incorrect. And we'll talk about it a little bit later. My fear of leaving him and my parents do the whole "I told you so." That word has never come out of their mouth in this aspect. It is definitely in lots of other things, but I was very wrong. They would have taken me back in a heartbeat if I just, Mom, Dad, you were wrong. You're right, I was wrong. But in there, he was like, they don't love you. Well, let's just go be with my family. They don't judge us. Your parents are just these mean, judgmental Christians.
And did you have any idea she was in at that, like that deep at this point, Stephen?
Not at this point. I didn't know kind of until, I kind of had a rough opening to getting to know how she was in it, but it all came out, and our whole family, grandparents, my parents, 16, we had a really tight, big family. So we kind of all found out together once it all came out, and it was a little bit further down the road than where we're at right now.
Okay. All right. Well, let's go ahead and get further down the road here.
Yeah. I'm actually going to pop open the back of the book because it has an actual year and month timeline, so I can tell you where we're at. So let's see. So in March, I dropped out of school, and by March I was dancing already, and I dropped out of school. So the money from the club was starting to dry up. He had been injured on the job and lost his job. They From what I was told, I've never verified this, it's just what he told me, there was a hiring freeze on firemen in California, and he was having a hard time passing his EMT, so he gave up that dream. I don't know if that's true, never thought to check it. Why would he lie about that? So then now money is really tight. Well, now he's like, well, why don't you try doing movies like Destiny? And she says, yeah, why don't you can come shoot something for my website and see if you like it. And if you don't like it, you don't like it. And I won't ever put it out there. It's not a big deal. We have full control. Pfft, that's harmless. What could go wrong? It was horrendous and it was awful. And I had no idea what I was getting into. I am going to be writing a second uncensored version that will go in a lot more detail about that kind of stuff. But it was just one of those, I wasn't ready for what I was getting myself into, but I wanted to be one of the cool kids. The guy was fantastic. He was great. Destiny was amazing. Everybody was really nice. So it kind of fed that, well, these aren't evil people. They're nice people. And it also fed the, you can't tell me not to do something. Because now I'm like, well, this went so wrong. I have to do it right. Next thing you know, that was June. So February, I took the job dancing. June, I'm now working in LA.
Wow. So this is moving really, really fast.
And I remembered sitting in our living room for weeks. Are you sure you want to do this, baby? Are you sure you want to do this? Your family's going to hate it. Like, I know that they're not really talking, but this is going to have life-changing, yada, 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 yada. So now it's my idea. Now I'm okay with it. I'm like, it's fine, it's fine. The manipulation I wasn't seeing. That was not weeks. There's no way we went from March to June, and it was weeks of me sitting there thinking about it. Because I filmed with her, and then I didn't actually film again for a couple of weeks. So there's still that overlay. And in the book, it says I started dancing part-time and filming in June. So it was so fast, but it's my idea. I'm going to be cool like Destiny.
So you started filming, and within that next 2 weeks, it was just another pivotal point.
Yeah.
Because now you're changing, I guess, job descriptions here.
It's not that it's harmless to be a dancer, but it's a lot less environmentally effective because my daughter may never know I'm a dancer. My daughter's going to know if mommy made a movie because somebody's going to find it and show it to her. If that's part of one of my uncle's coworkers was at the club, and that's how some of my family found out I was dancing. But I had already started filming when that happened. I'll never forget it. My uncle, he's in the book a little bit. He was one of those supportive but not supportive roles. And he called me and he was like, "Who's Madison, Amanda?" And I was like, "Well, crap, I'm out." And I told him everything. And he found out, and then that led into the rest of the family finding out. I don't know exactly how. We've never actually talked about how you found out. I know my parents found out because my best friend from high school mailed them a copy of one of my movies with me on the cover. So my uncle's phone call confirmed what my parents had found out.
So it sounds like we'll get to that. It sounds like that'll be something to get into today here.
Yeah.
And that'll be new even for you. So you're at the point where you're considering filming a second show or movie.
Yeah, and so we sat down with, I believe we call him Corey, with Corey and Destiny and Hans, and we sit down and we're planning out my career because you don't want to just go wham bam. And so it started with, I'm only going to do things by myself. Well, now I'll do things with other girls. Okay, now you do oral things. And then when you pay me enough money, I'll do a full sex scene. Because it's a weird industry. Things are taboo. And once you do certain types of scenes, it's almost like you're tainted. And I would have, let's say I go right into like the bondagey, beat the girls up type movies. I'm only 18, barely legal innocence is gone. They're not going to pay me for that anymore. So we were planning, the four of us, how I was going to navigate through all these scenes to keep the longevity of the career. So for a long time, I was only filming just by myself or with girls kind of thing. And then I I met a publicist who does an internet radio show, started co-hosting that. And this one's kind of fun. I'm not going to lie, there was some fun stuff, or else why would I have stayed? I got invited to go to Toronto and co-host the Miss Nude Canada pageant, which is just a big, dancing event. But it wasn't like anything I'd ever seen before, because in Canada, the actresses are more like you've done 1 or 2 magazines. So here I come in as a film star, and let me have your autograph, let me take your picture. There's that attention feeding again. I was just on top of the world. And I mean, the girls climbed up to the rafters and were dancing from the rafters. There was a girl that brought this big champagne glass, and she did her whole dance in like a bubble bath. And it was just, again, another one of those intrigued and like, what is going on? But this is so cool. Why doesn't everybody want to see this kind of stuff? I was able to even be part of music videos with a Canadian rock band up there. And so I'm just, all these cool things, they want me in their videos. This attention is coming back. And then I got the call that my agency had found a company that wanted to hire me to do my first full sex scene. And we asked about money earlier. It was $2,500 for this scene. So in the first 6 months of being in LA, I had pretty much just let dancing trickle away. I made $60,000. I don't have a dime to show for it. I don't know where it went. I know he wasn't working, and he would come down to LA with me every once in a while. I rented rooms from my girlfriends. We would do stuff like that. So that's kind of where we're at with the industry. It started to turn from there once you start doing the full scenes. It's not that you're like tapped out, but I only let so many happen, and now it's just routine. I live in Sacramento. I drive to LA for 2 weeks. I shoot a couple of scenes. I go home for 2 weeks, and it's just repeat.
So I want to turn the question now back to your faith here. Mm-hmm. So did you hear the Holy Spirit talking to you? Did you get a sense of that, or did you start losing it? Where were you at spiritually at this point, or up to this point?
I still would do my prayers here and there, and like, when I felt like I needed something, I would pray for it. But practicing was gone. It was totally gone. I was so wrapped up in look how cool I am. Because when I would come home from LA, all of my new friends, well, how was work? What'd you do? This and that. And we would just party. And they're feeding into that ego. And it was more like it was just gone. I had nobody around me was really practicing. So I never didn't believe. But I would almost say I didn't feel like there was a relationship at this point in time. Like I was that one little sheep that wandered away.
And so I'm assuming it was harder to hear the Holy Spirit speaking to you about the things you were getting into.
They say that you can hear the devil on your shoulder. And that's who I think was in my ear more than anything. Just feeding that, well, you're getting attention from all these people. Your family doesn't love you. Why aren't they talking to you? Just feeding that, and I was just ignoring my other shoulder.
So is there anything at this point that could have, if anything, kind of get you to, think differently or open your eyes? You said that no one could have done anything, but is there anything that you think would have changed some things at that point? Or were you so locked in that...
I think more locked in than anything. There was one point where I got a staph infection, actually, and I got really sick. And we thought it was a spider bite, so you're messing with it. And the next thing you know, I have this big swollen leg, and I called Hans, and I told him, it was a camera guy that was like, that's not a spider bite. You need to get to a hospital. And I called Hans, and he says, come home. I'll take you. So now I'm going to drive the 6 hours from LA to Sacramento just to go to the hospital so he can take me. Now I'm getting sick. Now I'm thinking, what am I getting myself into? Am I going to be okay? Now I'm like, Lord, please just let me be okay. And so I go home, and I remember getting in the bath because I just felt so crummy. And I called my mom. And it was the first time I had called my mom in a long time. And I don't know if he knows this, so I'm going to get a Kleenex ready. And my mom answered, which I didn't think she would. And I told her what's going on. And she said, well, this is what you deserve. And at that point, I was like, he's right. They don't love me. And I think that was, it's like, okay, I'm done. And I mean, I'm fine now. It was actually really, really weird. I didn't think about getting in the bath with staph. It could spread it and do things. And it pulled it all to the surface. And so I was able to avoid having to have it lanced at the hospital when I got there because I pulled it out. But I got really sick and they gave me antibiotics and I was allergic to the antibiotics. But now I've got that. This is what you deserve. So I'm not going to reach back out to my mom. The next day, and this was all within 3 days. So I got sick, got the medicine, got sick from the medicine, decided not to go to my friend's birthday party because I was sick. Well, my friend got shot and killed. 2 days later, they all go out in a limo to a friend of ours had a limo that he found on Craigslist. And they went out and tried to just kind of clear their head and everything after he was killed. Well, the house got raided because his roommate ended up being a drug dealer for the cartel. And here I am just sitting at home because I got sick. And I didn't go to any of these things because I was feeling sick. So there's God keeping me out of these. I wasn't at the party where people were killed. There were several people shot, and they were all my close friends. There were several people that went to jail that day, and I was at that house every day for those 2 weeks that I was home in Sacramento. So looking back, I can see he's working, he's keeping me out, but he's not keeping me out at the same time because I still had to learn my lesson.
So did you recognize that was God at that point, or did you just think, oh, coincidence?
I've never been a big, it's just coincidence. I was like, thank you, God, for keeping me out of that because my life could have been way, way different if I was there.
Okay, so where are we at in the timeline here?
In the timeline, so after all of that crazy week, we decided commuting back and forth was not for me. It was just exhausting. He wasn't working, so why am I going back? So here we are in May of 2008. And I moved out in February of 2007. And now I'm full-time in LA. Not only am I acting, I am now doing the makeup. We're going to conventions and parties, and I'm doing red carpets. I'm still doing the radio show. And at this point, because I was doing the full sex scenes, Hans suggested that we needed to find something that was special for us. And it was just for our intimacy, just for our private bedroom. And that's when I was introduced to BDSM. And he was going to be my dominant partner in the bedroom because those were the taboo scenes that I was never going to do. So that would always be our special little thing. Yeah, that was a dumb decision.
At that point, he's still your idol.
Mm-hmm.
And you haven't seen that yet. And so now you're doing things, or did you have any hesitation at this point?
No, because it made sense to me. Why wouldn't we have something that's just ours? Well, if he's willing to let me go and be sexual with other people, why wouldn't there be something that's just ours? Because most people have the bedroom as an entirety is just them. But I didn't have that, so why wouldn't I find something? And the house we lived in, there was other industry people. So it didn't seem different to them either. There was parties all the time. Like I do know some very big name people in the industry. Like I said, we were working to get me to be what they call a contract girl, which is when you're working exclusively with just one company. And those are your big name, your Jenna Jameson type big name people. And that was my goal. So why wouldn't I just follow suit with what everybody else was going with?
So you felt like the Lord spoke to you with the staph infection.
Mm-hmm.
Had you seen any other indication that the Lord was doing stuff? Did anybody come into your life that wasn't your family or friends? Was there anything that could have been the Lord speaking to you more?
I would say not necessarily that someone that came into my life, but solely the fact that 100% in the back of my mind, my whole life has been my grandfather was an alcoholic, and on my dad's side, not our side, and I've never wanted to be an addict. So here I am living in LA. There's cocaine at my house all the time. There's heavy drinking. I don't know what other heavy drugs there were. I know that there was pot and stuff. I never felt the urge to touch a bit of it, and I think that was God reminding me, like, you don't want to get into that. You didn't want to be that person. Don't be that person. And just keeping that thought in my heart of you don't want to be an addict, stay away. Because who knows if I had gotten into that. Because that's another one of those that you get addicted to things you can't get out because you're addicted. Or you can't fund your habits any other way. I'd never had any of that.
So I want to, and you let me know if you want to go to a different point in the timeline, but I'm thinking it might be a good time to jump into where since your family's starting to know now.
Yeah, when I moved to LA, before we moved, we said our goodbyes. And this is just, it's so in my head. I will never, you just have those memories where you can, as soon as you start talking about, you visual everything, the smells, like you just never forget a second of it. This is one of those for me. Hans was in the backyard with my dad, my now brother-in-law, and my foster brother, and they were having their we're gonna get through to him hard talk moment. My mom inside was talking to me, and she said, "I pray to God that my Christmas present is not identifying my oldest daughter dead and raped in a gutter." And that was the last thing my parents said to me before I moved to LA. And that's when I knew they knew everything, and it was done. Communication was cut.
And so, Stephen, now that the family knows, where are you at this point? What's going on, and your kind of experience during this time?
So I guess give a really short backstory of my upbringing too, because our grandparents were from Alabama, super Southern, religious, Christian, grew up like that. Moved to Nevada in the 60s, had, my dad, her mom, and our other aunts and uncles, and we all kind of stayed local for the most part. But my dad ended up going to Bible college and becoming a pastor, so I grew up as a pastor's kid, and I had my own kind of wishy-washy faith here and there and rebellions and things, but have always kind of kept pretty close to my faith. And I remember, growing up and getting to 13, 14 and having friends, and all of a sudden it's porn's the cool thing to watch. So even though I'm a Christian, I'm just it's just a habit. We just watch it all the time, sometimes together, groups of dudes. It's just what you did when you're in junior high and high school. And I remember being older, 18, 19, somewhere in there, and not, Amanda and I would text here and there, hey, how are you? She's like, oh, I'm great. Everything's good. Bye. Kind of super surface level, me trying to reach out, not knowing what's going on, not knowing how to, just not having a friend in her anymore because I don't know what she's doing with her life. And I think the only person I probably ever told this to is my pastor at the time. But I remember watching porn one night on probably the biggest website that there is, and I'm just clicking through video promos, and then I see one and I'm like, that girl looks kind of familiar. And then I see that it's Amanda. And I how do you explain that? I'm in this boy wanting to get off, and just all of a sudden I see my family member who I've grown up with, who I love to death. And it was a 1 minute promo thing. It's not a full video. And I remember I wasn't able to turn it off. I wasn't I was frozen. And it ended, and I couldn't tell you if it was 10 minutes or an hour, but I just sat there deer in the headlights. Oh, okay. Now I get why we're not talking to her. But it wasn't my choice not to talk to her. It was just, now I'm understanding what's going on. And it was still a couple months after that it kind of came out. I remember being at my grandparents' house in Gardnerville, and it kind of everybody started talking about it, and it's okay, now we all know. And I was oh, phew, oh, okay, that's what she's doing. Wow, I had no idea. I'm not going to tell anybody. But I had seen that, and I think seeing that kind of woke me up earlier and kind of gave me this compassion that not a lot of people had. I don't know what it did. It messed me up, basically. And we'll get into other parts of the story, but I remember thinking about it and hearing, and it's not a knock against anybody. It's not a knock against family, because it's how do you respond to something like that with somebody that you love? And it's different people are well, we just won't talk to her until she gets better, or she'll come around eventually and realize she's wrong and she's just ruining her life and all this stuff. And in the back of my mind, I'm like, I just want to give her a hug. Like
That's what I needed.
I miss my cousin. Like, I just want to give her a hug and tell her that I love her. And there was like an idea that planted, which leads into a part of the book where I was like, at some point, I'm going to reach out and I'm going to help somehow. I'm going to help fix this. And, you know, I had done work with Awaken, which is a sex trafficking group, Christian nonprofit in Reno that helps women get out of the life. And I've done prayer events and gone out on the streets and hung out and talked to pimps and all kinds of stuff with them. And all of a sudden it's like one of my closest family members. Like, I just knew, like God was saying, at some point you're going to have an opportunity to help. Don't burn the bridge. Don't burn the bridge. Just look at the example of Jesus. Jesus didn't sit in a room and tell people, hey, figure it out and then come talk to me. He went to the deepest, darkest places and just sat with people. And basically his line was, just go and sin no more. Like, I see you in everything that you're doing, but I still love you. So I knew that was the example. And at some point there'd be a chance to be that for her.
And how long after that did you act on it, or did you have an opportunity to do something?
It wasn't right away. It was a couple years, actually, and Amanda will get into more parts of her story, but there was a part where she ends up back in Nevada, closer, doing it in a whole different part of the life, and that's when I was like, okay, now's the time to reach out.
All right, so Amanda, let's go and let's cover those 2 years. And I thank you guys for being vulnerable, because it's obviously a difficult thing. I mean, I'm even getting.
I was trying not to sniff back here. I'm sorry, guys.
It's obviously a touching.
It shows the
thing.
Real emotion in it. Like, this is real stuff.
Mm-hmm.
It's not a movie.
So let's go into the next 2 years here and find out what's going on with you and highlight those.
Okay,
that timeline.
so we'll kind of flash forward a bit. So like I said, I had become the submissive partner. We ended up coming back to Sacramento every other weekend because he missed his friends. He missed his family. He wasn't able to keep a job down there. He would go to events with me, but he wouldn't just stand behind the scenes. He was on the red carpet with me. He even got to be like, what are they called? Where you're just a background actor. He's
extra.
An extra, thank you. He'd been an extra in a couple of movies because he thought it was so cool to have his name in the credits and stuff like that. So we end up moving back to Sacramento. And this isn't very long. We moved to LA in May. We were back in Sacramento in September. So here I am back to traveling 2 weeks a month. Money had dwindled because now I have started to shoot my scenes. I denied the contract when it came. I was approached. I was told, don't gain any weight, don't change your hair color, no tattoos, nothing. The company has told us we want you to be a contract star. And for whatever reason, it never came to fruition. And that was God, because they own your name at that point. They own the rights to everything. My stuff will eventually disappear, but they can reboot at any point in time if they own the name. So God had his hand on that for sure. So I started doing what they call privates. And basically that's inner industry prostitution. It's cameras are not on. It's the directors. It's stuff like that. So I had a friend who helped me get in contact with directors, didn't think about it as a pimp because I never gave him money. He can't be a pimp if I'm not paying him anything. So my roommate now, because instead of renting a room, the agencies have houses where you can rent a room while you're down there. I actually moved in with a girlfriend. And I was doing these private appointments after scenes if I had a scene. And I got a call for a late night appointment. And she tells me, something doesn't feel right. Are you sure? And I was like, I need the money. I have to go. And rewind just a tad. My dogs had gotten into a fight. So I had a broken wrist. So I was in not a permanent cast, but like a Velcro cast. So I could still film and stuff. And I had gone to the house and he said, go ahead. He had a back house set up and everything where the appointments would happen. And I'm just going to do that, give him a Kleenex. I don't know if he knows about this at all. The appointment never came. So I had started to get dressed, and he was like, what are you doing? And he sits down on the couch, and now I put my cast back on. I'm trying to button my jeans, and I go to step away from him, and I trip because he had locked his legs behind me. Long story short, he assaulted me. So now I'm like, what the? And in my heart and my gut and my everything was saying, just lay there. He will beat the living hell out of you if you fight him. And I did. And it ruined intimacy. Ruined it. Because it wasn't a violent assault. It was sweet nothings in your ear. And I mean, I had handprint bruises on my back. And I was in such a fog that he walked me through his house and had me say goodnight to his daughter and to his girlfriend, and then waved and smiled and gave me a thumbs up as I drove away. And that's another one of those burned into your memories. And I remember just pulling over a couple blocks away and just losing it and just thinking, God, my mom was right. She said in Christmas, and here we are in April, and I was just assaulted. And I didn't know what to do. Nobody's going to believe me. You're a porn star. But you got to do what's right. You got to turn this guy in. He said he did it before. And my roommate called me because I never called her. And she was like, where are you? What is going on? And I told her. And she happened to, when she was in college, work for the people that, I can't remember the acronym now, but like they would bag up the clothes after assault and do all the things. So I get home. We take everything off. She bags it up. And I'm like, I just want to take a bath. I just want to get clean. I just want to scrub this off and be okay. And she wouldn't let me, and I didn't understand. And her husband was like, you can have a drink, but you can't shower until you decide what to do. And so Destiny came down, and the three of us sat there trying to figure out, the cops are not going to believe you because you're in the industry. And they were right. I reported it. I had pictures from the hospital of the handprint bruises. I had $1,000 cash with an apology letter signed by him, and they would not press any charges because I'm a porn star and porn stars don't get raped. Sorry.
It's okay.
So that, like I said, ruined intimacy with Hans. So now we're back into the bondage. Now we're really heavy into the bondage. And I mean, I'm sorry, Stephen.
I knew that. Still can't stop crying.
There was rules put in place because now we lived in our own house. I wasn't allowed to wear clothes if no one was home. I had to crawl around like a dog. I wasn't allowed to walk. He was served his dinner first, and I would sit on the floor at his feet and wait for him to be done before I could eat. And I would eat by the dogs. I wasn't allowed to tell him no to any sexual activities. He wanted me to kiss his feet goodnight every night, to kiss other places and thank it every night. There was nights where if he didn't feel I was good enough, I slept on the floor or I got no blankets. I was locked in a dog kennel in a dark closet for hours if I didn't obey. And of course, there's like, there's whippings and like that kind of stuff, but people don't see that side of it. I had no idea that's what was going to be happening. But I didn't fight it at the same time because I couldn't be passionate. This was the only way that I could be intimate with him because I was so ruined from the assault. So that from there also led into me wanting to get out of LA. And my roommate had started working at the brothel up here. Again, I'll keep the names out of it. And she had sat down with the owner, and he jumped at the shot to have a big name porn star come work at the house. And we came up there and we talked, and they said it's safe. That will never happen to you again. For a long time, I had a problem with certain races because of the race that the gentleman was. And they weren't going to force me to do anything I didn't want to do there. So I left filming. I did 1 or 2 final films, and I came up to Mound House. And that is where Stephen and I reconnected, is when I came back here.
So Stephen, we're at this point where she comes back, and now you have an opportunity to connect with her again. So what happened?
Yeah, I remember I mean, I did reach out shortly after seeing the video and just was like, hey, I love you. Hope you're doing well. Like, didn't say, hey, I know. I didn't bring up anything about it. I just said, hey, I love you. Like, and then a couple years later, find out she's in town working at a place that's pretty local. You know, for me, it would be 45-minute drive or so. So I reached back out and was like, hey, I know you're kind of in town, and whenever you're ready, like, I just want to take you to breakfast and just hang out. Like, no, nothing crazy. Just, I want to hear from you directly, not family members, not anything, like, not even what you're doing. I just want to know how you're doing. And, like, just breakfast is on me whenever you're ready. And just left it up to her. Nothing forceful, nothing like, hey, we need to talk, you know. And she kind of was like, cool, that's great. I'll let you know. And like nothing for a little while. And I remember one day, couldn't tell you the day, couldn't tell you the year, but you probably
I could
can.
tell you because I got engaged to Hans, who told me my dad blessed it if I got out of the industry. And so that was, you know, new, exciting. He really does love me. Why wouldn't he marry me if he didn't love me? And I was going to get out of the industry because nobody wants their wife to do that. And we go to my grandparents' anniversary party. And I remember my two aunts cornering me in the kitchen while we were cutting up cheese and just being like, why didn't you invite us to your wedding? And we're just 2 weeks away from the wedding at this point. And I said, because my parents said that none of my family would ever support it. So they told me not to send any invitations. And my two aunts were like, well, you should have let us make our choice. And I go to leave and I ask my parents, you know, the wedding's right around the corner. Are you going to come? And my dad said, we cannot stand in front of God and say we're proud of our daughter, the prostitute, and this man that is willing to marry her. No. And that's when I told Stephen we could have breakfast.
Back to you, Stephen. What?
Yeah, I remember now. Yeah. So I just, you know, she reached out and she was like, hey, this day like works. I'm off at 3 a.m. And I was like, perfect. I'll be in the parking lot. So I got up at like 2 a.m, drove down to this place, sat in the parking lot, just heart racing. Like I've never even been in the parking lot of a place like this. I watched my cousin come out to the car. I'm composed. I got all my crying done on the way. Like, you know, I don't even know if I cried on the way, actually. I was kind of stone-faced, like shut off my emotions because this is going to be really difficult. But I had made it up in my mind that I wasn't going to preach. I wasn't going to talk. I wasn't going to tell her my piece. I wasn't going to tell her to get out of it. It was just about her and just being present and being there with her. So I'm sitting in the parking lot. She comes out. I open the door for her. I'm like, the only place that's open is McDonald's. That's where we're going. We're getting hash browns and egg McMuffins. So we get to McDonald's and we sat down and I just looked her in the eyes like, how are you? Just tell me all about your life. And I think it was like an hour. I didn't even say anything. I just listened to her talk. And inside, every part of me was squirming. Like I just want to grab her feet and swing her and bang her against the wall a couple times, like knock some sense into you, get out of this. Because I'm disgusted. Because I'm like, she's like, it's safe. These are all the precautions we take and all this stuff. And the whole time I'm like just crawling. Like wanting to tell her that she's worth more, but not being able to. Wanting to tell her that I can help her get out, but she's not ready. And I knew she wasn't ready. And she didn't need a hero right then. She needed a friend. And so like a lot of family members, again, not knocking on anybody, because how do you know what to do in a situation like that? A lot of people were like, well, I'm not going to talk to her until she's ready and comes out of it and this and that. I went specifically to like get all the gritty details and just let her know, like, I see you and I'm here for you. And just like the first time I saw the video and I knew at some point I would get the chance to talk to her, I knew during that meeting that at some point she was going to call me and I was going to be a part of helping her when she was ready to get out of it. I didn't know when, didn't know how, but I remember being sick to my stomach, and at the end of it, I was like, hey, I love you, and I know you're not at this place now. I know you're not ready. I know, this is your life, and you're choosing it regardless of if you're being pushed or not or forced. Like, this is where you want to be to an extent. But the day you're ready, like, I will not hesitate, and I'll be there. I'll stop whatever I'm doing and do whatever I need to do to help you. And she kind of, like, at that point was like, oh, blah, 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 wrote it off. Like, but I knew that's a seed. Like, that's planting something for the future that's going to get watered, and had no idea how long it would be. But I'm pretty sure I didn't cry the whole way there. But then I dropped her off and cried the whole way home. So.
Okay, so Amanda, now what were you really feeling? Because I know some of it was a little bit of a protective wall that was already up,
right.
Talking to your family member here. So what was really going on after this meeting, or after? What were you thinking?
Definitely when he said I needed a friend, that I needed a friend. I needed an ally. I needed to feel like God didn't let me lose all my family like I thought I had. And then with my aunt saying, we still love you, and my cousin like, hey, like, I love you, regardless. Because you don't feel loved a lot of the time, because when people start finding out, now you're this jaded, tainted person. How could you let yourself do these horrible, awful, wicked things when for years I've been fed that these aren't horrible, wicked things? And to me, this is normal. And I'll fast forward real quick. There's a phrase that one of the Awakened girls said, and she said she felt that she pretended to be proud of what she did to hide the shame. I had no idea that's what I was doing. That is what I was doing. And I had grown so accustomed to putting on this front, always being Madison, and always hair and makeup done and this and that, because Hans picked out what I wore. If I didn't look good enough, I had to go and change. So it was so ingrained into me, because keep in mind, I'm not even 21 yet. And so here I am. I finally have somebody that just knows Amanda, has always known Amanda, and is just accepting what I'm doing that would never have accepted it in any other circumstance in my eyes. And that's what I say to the girls that are in that moment, because now I'm at that turning point where I want to be normal. I want my family at my wedding. Who doesn't want their dad to walk them down the aisle? I'm his oldest daughter. I'm the only one to be getting married. This is my only wedding. No, I'll put 98% as the family that wasn't at my wedding. And no little girl wants that. And here I am getting my family wanting to come around. Too late for the wedding, but it's those, God's not leaving me alone like I thought I was. It's not just his family. Sorry.
No, it's fine. It's fine.
Trying not to cry, but it's hard.
Yeah. Well, so you're at this point where Stephen has reached out. You've connected with him, and it's obviously you had a little bit of a facade up,
Yeah.
but Holy Spirit's talking to you, planting those seeds and stuff, just like Stephen's talking about. And then what are you thinking as time is going by after this meeting? What are you starting to feel? What are you starting to accept?
That was the beginning of, he's right. I could be doing more, but I can't afford not to be doing it. And I was locked. He couldn't hold down. In the 8 years we were together, I went through my tax returns. The most he ever made was $5,000 in a year. So I was stuck. I didn't go to school. I had no training. What am I going to do? Go work at a little McDonald's? I'm not going to make $60,000 in 6 months at McDonald's. So now here I am up here in Mound House doing stuff, wanting to get out, but not knowing how to get out, having no avenue to get out until I met she's one of my dearest friends to this day, Serenity, who does essentially privates again, but now it's illegal prostitution out in the Bay Area through a website. And we all know the website. It's been shut down and whatnot. But yeah, I did run on those websites. And I, over time, moved from the website to working in the Bay. And this is when my friends were starting to, and these are the friends that there was times, and you'll read about it in the book, where I came downstairs and they, like he said, in a group setting, they're just sitting there watching porn, and it was my movie, and these people had no idea. But Hans was like, baby, I just want to show them how good you are. I just want to show, I'm so proud of you. You should be proud of who you are and what you do. I wanted out. I was appalled. But these friends are now starting to be like, Amanda, this isn't safe. You're now illegal. Like, you can do some major damage. What are you doing? And my roommate at the time, I'll never forget, he actually said, every time I saw you pack that pink suitcase, the life left your eyes. And he knew I didn't want to do it. I wanted to be out. I wanted to be normal, but the money wasn't there. So now here I am running illegal escorting through websites with my girlfriend, thinking that's, all right, this is just the next step. And then I get married and we do, the whole honeymoon thing. And I'm thinking to myself, this is it. We're done. I can be done. I can go get a normal job. He's going to work. This is going to happen. And he pushed me to go to the Bay. And even after we had just gotten married, he solidified that was the next right step for us. And he was working part-time at a party supply store. And we were able to kind of, sort of balance it out. So I stopped in Mound House, only was going to the Bay. At one point, she and I were like, screw it. Let's go to Vegas. We're going to go do this in Vegas. If we can make thousands of dollars in a day in the Bay Area, why can't we do it in Vegas? So we go down there. Everybody has fun the first night in Vegas. You just got there, you're having fun. Well, we go down to the pool where I run into a guy I graduated with. And I carpooled to college with this guy. To this day, he is a near and dear friend of mine. And he was celebrating a friend's 21st birthday. That we took pictures together. And keep in mind, I'm in jeans and a t-shirt and just makeup. And I was scrolling through social media after an appointment that she and I had. And the comments on these pictures. I can't believe you hired hookers for the birthday. How dare you? And these are people I went to school with. And he was like, guys, that's Amanda. Nobody recognized me, and I'm not dolled up. I'm not nothing in my eyes. But here I am, 8 layers of makeup deep, boobs out to my eyeballs. But that was my normal. And I, at that moment, was like, oh my God, I lost Amanda. I'm just Madison. I don't want this. What the hell am I going to do? So we go back to the Bay, and I'm telling her, like, all these emotions and feelings, and I just don't know what to do, because she didn't want to be in it either, but her boyfriend that lived with her was the one that was booking appointments, and she couldn't get out either. And I'm telling him, I don't feel good. I'm just sick to my stomach over this. And for days I was sick. I was pregnant. I wasn't just sick. I go tell my husband, and I'm all excited, and he'd gotten a girlfriend while I was gone. And he had asked time, can she be on our phone plan? Can she do this? Can she do that? Because I forgot to mention, huge thing I left out. When we first got together, he told me he would only ever be in an open relationship. I did not know what that was. I thought open communication and everything. And I'll never forget my uncle, when I told him that, was just eyes popped out of his head and was like, what the hell are you doing, Amanda? Do you know what that is? And that's when I found out. And I was like, psh. Whatever, he'll never do that. Boy, was I wrong. So we didn't, obviously, with the industry, you can't keep your bedroom closed in at least one sense, because I'm out doing stuff. So why shouldn't he be allowed to do stuff? As long as he told me ahead of time and I was okay with it, it was fine. I wasn't okay with it, and he still did it. So my neighbor across the street came and confronted the two of them at a party, and I ended up inducing a miscarriage. And so now I've lost the baby. I think I've lost my chance at closing our marriage. I've lost my chance of getting out of the industry, because now I really can't afford anything. And so I started planting those seeds in him. Like, I wanted to be a mom. I didn't even get to tell you I was pregnant, because you were in the bedroom while I'm in the bathroom having a miscarriage. He was doing the other girl. And so I'm like, I'm by myself. I can't call my mom. I'm not going to go to Stephen with this. I'm alone. And at that point, God was starting to be like, hey, you're not alone though. But you're only alone in your own mind. You're not really alone. And so that is when I was like, that's it. I'm done. I told him, this summer is my last summer. I'm done. And so I went ahead and started applying for jobs. And I ended up working 3 jobs. And I luckily wore the same uniform to 2 jobs. I would sleep in the car. I'm working 7 days a week, 3 jobs, just to keep afloat because I'm done. I don't want to go back. I can't. We were married, so I'm 22. And I'm fed up. I miss my family. I miss my sisters, my best friends. Like, I want all that back. And I find out I'm pregnant again. And now he was like, okay, we'll close the marriage. We'll have a family. You're already out of the industry. It'll be great. He calls me to pick him up from a house party. And being the people pleaser I am, there was a fight that had broken out. And the 2 brothers lived 2 doors down. So the fight started at house 1. I was at house 2 walking out of the garage. They broke up the fight, and the one guy came running to house 2 to find him. Well, he found me in the garage, and he went at me. And I mean, I was very early in the pregnancy, and he grabbed my hands. And I just remember telling him, it's Amanda. It's Amanda. Obviously, I'm not some 6'2", like, stop. It's Amanda. Well, they thought he was attacking me, so somebody tackled him, throwing me into a toolbox. Long story short, I've now lost my second child. And so I'm just like, God, I can't do this. I just want to be a mom. Why are you taking these kids? That's all I want. And at this point, my mom wasn't able to come with me to my surgery because they were doing stuff out of state for my sister's wedding. My grandfather had gotten really sick. And so she and her husband rushed their wedding. So the day I announced my pregnancy, they got engaged that night. So it was really, really fast. And so I had his mom come. And she was just blah. I'm in a rush to be at work. I can't really be there. And so I'm like, I'm by myself. I wanted nothing to do with my husband. I was so upset about everything. I just wanted to go home and crawl into my bed and just die. I was just so done and so depressed. And his aunt drove up from Pasadena and said, I don't think my nephew is going to take good enough care of you. And she took me home from the hospital, stayed with me for the first 8 hours, and drove back to Pasadena. And I'm like, your aunt doesn't even think that you're taking care of me. What the hell? Like, he didn't come with me to any of the doctor's appointments outside of the first one. When I went to do the ultrasound to find out what was going on, his bike broke down. So he chose to go work on his bike instead of going to the hospital with me. He didn't come with me to the appointment where they told me I had lost the baby because he had other things that he needed to do. He was training how to be a truck driver with the guy that we lived with. We had decided to, because money was tight, we moved from my 3-bedroom, 2-bath, backyarded, beautiful house next to my best friend to a single wide with no heat and no hot water because we needed to save money. And I was just thinking, I remember thinking to myself, this is not where I want to be. This is not where I want to raise my kids. And so it started planting those, this isn't right. This isn't right. God doesn't just not let you have a baby. There's reasons. And, blessing in disguise, he and I don't have any children. But I was just like, God, I can't do this anymore. And so I started to hit really deep depression. And I started confiding in my neighbor. And then her son came back from the Army. And I met Miguel, is his name in the book. And we started to get really close. And I could confide in him. And, I don't want this open marriage anymore. And he knew he had his own past, so he didn't judge me. I didn't judge him. And we got really close. And I was like, wait a minute. Maybe people would love me for me. This guy doesn't know me, and he's not treating me anyway, because you get so wrapped up in I'm not good enough if I'm not Madison. nobody's going to like Amanda. So you get so in your own head of, this is just where I'm going to be. There's nothing ever going to be better. And just that little glimmer of hope, I was like, okay, maybe I can do this. All right. And then he went back to Texas where he was stationed. And I was like, all right, well, that was fun. And so I was like thinking, I'm never going to be loved by anybody. Why am I even going to try? And my girlfriend and I had gone out to the club. I told her I was kind of interested in Miguel. And next thing you know, she and Hans sit us down and say, well, she's never been with anybody but her husband. Let's do a wife swap. And I was like, what? All right, whatever. It's open relationship. He wants it. We'll just go for it. And I'll never forget, her husband and I were just like, what the hell are we doing? This is weird. And lots of drinks. We ended up, partaking. And it was so different because it wasn't a domineering environment. And I was just like, well, this is kind of nice. I don't have to worry about getting smacked or something. Like, okay, cool. One time we're done. No, we weren't. No matter how many times her husband and I said no, they talked us into it. And he and I didn't do it. We took their son to go get root beer floats while she's back at the trailer doing things with my husband. And I remember this is the beginning of the end. I'd really gotten close to Miguel. He moved back, and like really close. I had same situation as with Justin and Hans. I wanted something different, but I didn't know how to get out of where I was. I didn't want my mom and dad to be right. I didn't want to be divorced. All those things going through my head. I didn't want to lose my family, or my little dogs and my husband were my little family at that point. And her husband and I had sat them down, and we said, Hans, you guys are done. You guys are doing this without us. That's a relationship. It's not a wife swap anymore. And when I was at work, she told him everything about Miguel and set him into a rage, obviously, because I cheated on him. Because how do you cheat in an open marriage? And I was like, okay, whatever. Didn't think anything of it. My phone was just going and going. It was Miguel's mom, who was my neighbor across the street. I'd gotten very close with them. It was Miguel. It was my husband. It was her. And her name is Riley in the book. And Riley's telling me, it's not safe. Don't go home. It's not safe. It's not going to go good. Or not going to go well. That was grammatically incorrect. And I told her, it's my husband. I'm going to face him. Why would I run away from this? I know what was going on. And I remember driving home and writing down Miguel's phone number on a piece of paper and putting it in my glove box because I knew he was going to make me delete it. And I go inside, and he had a handle, and he was wasted. And he goes into how could you hurt me? I've done nothing but love and support you, and you cheated on me and this and that. And I was like, wow, okay, I'm really starting to feel bad. Maybe I did do something wrong. Like, he's really hurt. And he tells me the only way to make it up and to save my marriage is to give a very graphic, detailed story and he gets to pick the topic. And I was just like, that's how we're going to fix this? What? You're twisted. That's not like marriage counseling. What? But I didn't want to be the failure divorce, so I went with it. And the story that he wanted me to tell was re-traumatizing me from my assault. He used that against me and said, if you don't tell me this story, I'm going to record this and post it. And I was like, well, are you going to send the videos of this to people? Like, what is wrong with you? And I'm like, okay, he's drunk. I can't fight him too much. He's bigger than me. Not by much, but he was bigger than me. And so I started doing that. And next thing you know, he beat the crap out of me. And he slapped me around and lays down next to me in bed, kissed me on the cheek and said, love you, honey, good night. And I was just laying there like, what the F just happened? I don't want to deal with this. I don't want to be here. So I went to bed. I woke up the next morning to him throwing my phone and hitting me in the face. He had gone through my phone, and because I didn't delete Miguel off Facebook, I only deleted his number, it was a problem. And it started the whole thing over. And I was just like, why would I think to delete him off of my social media? Like, I deleted his phone number. What is wrong with you? And I had seen a missed text message from my mom. And you'd asked, do I talk to my parents? No. My mom had texted saying, hey, do you want to do lunch? Which is, and Stephen can attest, it's very out of character for my mom to reach out to me at this point, because she was just like, my daughter's lost. She's gone. I don't know. And they'll tell you they prayed for me every day, and I don't doubt that one bit. And I get to lunch, and he had screamed at me the whole way on the phone. And I don't know why I didn't just hang up on him, but I didn't. And I'm standing there and I'm texting our mutual friend. And I just remember I was texting so fast, because it was back when you had to hit the button to get each different number or different letter. And my mom just looked over at me and she's like, my God, who are you so angry at? Why are you okay? And I just looked at her and started crying. And I was like, I'm getting divorced. And she just, oh God, all right, you go, I'll get the food. You just go sit down. And I start to tell her everything. And I tell my mom more than I thought I would, but still not everything. And she says, okay, why don't you come to the house and take a hot shower for as long as you want, because keep in mind, I didn't have hot water really at the trailer, and we'll have dinner and just have a relaxing night and just think about what you need to do. And so I call Hans and I tell him that. And he said, you need to stay home and watch my dogs while I go bowling with our friends. And I was like, they're dogs. I have my own car. I'm going to my mom's. So I grabbed my laptop and pajamas. I didn't grab anything because I knew I was leaving, but I didn't know I was leaving. I didn't want him to think that I was leaving because he had just beaten me the night before. What's he going to do now? So I tell my dad what's going on, and my mom says, we've had your divorce papers ready for you since the day you got married. Not once was there, and I told you so. It was, what do you need? How can we help? And that was so different than what I was expecting, and that fear was just gone. And so I was like, okay, I can do this. I have the support. Then I talked to Hans, and he was drinking, and he was taking pills. Supposedly, I never confirmed, and I'm going to kill myself, and I just love you, and I can't lose you, da-da-da-da-da-da-da-da. So about 4 a.m., and I tell him, I'm coming home tomorrow. I'll see you tomorrow. I'm going to bed. I'm tired. 6 o'clock, my mom wakes me up, and she says, if you go back to that trailer, I will never see you again. I had a nightmare, and he killed you. You're not going. Your aunt in Carson is waiting for you. Your dad's at the Target in Folsom waiting for you. Go. And my dad spent a few $100, bought me everything I could need, and they shipped me to Nevada. And I had lunch with Riley and Miguel and told Miguel, I want to be with you. I don't know what I'm doing. And he said, you let me know when you get to Reno. And I called him and let him know. And he said, I love you, but do not talk to me again until you figure this out. You need to figure out on your own what you want to do. Whenever you're ready, I'm here if that's the case. And so I spent a couple weeks there, and I was like, okay, I'm done. I'm not going back. I have the support I need. And he wouldn't accept that I wanted to be separated because I was scared to tell him the divorce. And I just told him, I need you to leave me alone so I can think. And if I didn't answer my phone, he called my aunt and uncle that I stayed with. He showed up on the doorstep at one point, and that's when I called Stephen, and I said, okay, I need you to come with me back to California and get my stuff.
All right, so Stephen, you've got this phone call.
Sorry, we totally set him up for that.
To start.
It's okay. You can take a second here, but you get this phone call. You already know what's been going on, but now she's actually reaching out to you. So at this point, what's going on?
I'll give him his second to collect himself. When you keep asking where was God in all this, I knew that was the person I needed help from, and I didn't know why. But my heart said, Stephen is the one to go to.
So there was a leading.
Yeah, there was no other person I would have called. My sisters, my parents were there, my friends were there, but I called Stephen.
Yeah, it's fine. It's okay. Take your time.
I don't know what I did. Like, I don't know if I yelped or jumped. I think she called and said, I need to go get my stuff. And it was like, I don't know, I felt like a Navy SEAL. Like, it's go time, mission's on. I'm like locked in. It's time to go. This is dangerous, but I'm not worried about it. This could go badly, but I do not care. God's going to protect us, and we're going to go get it. So I don't know what, it was a Saturday, I think. I don't know what I was doing, but I stopped doing whatever it was. I mean, I think, was it the same day you called me that we went?
We went to that same day.
Yeah, it was the same day. It was like, I'm on my way. I loaded up, and her parents had said, swing by our house first. We'll just check in on you guys before you go over there. But I just picked her up, and we hopped in the car and started driving to Sacramento from Reno. And there was so much I wanted to say all those years. And I remember just shaking, and she looked over and she was like, you can say it now. Like all the stuff. And I just started crying and told her how much God loved her for over an hour. Like how much she was worth, how valuable she is, how much we were all hurting, and how, everybody that didn't know how to reach out to her and seemed angry and pissed off, it was all because we were heartbroken and just didn't know what to do. And everybody loves you. Not one of us has turned our back on you. And people express it in different ways. People act out and hurt in different ways. But we all loved you the whole time, and so did God. And one of the statistical things is a lot of people don't know that Reno is one of the most heavily trafficked cities in the country per capita. There's a ton of human trafficking here, and most of it is because we've legalized prostitution and have it here. You think you legalize it, you make it safer for everybody. But no, you kind of just open the door to where it's just a normal thing here and people expect it, and it makes it worse. So the Highway 80 from Sacramento to Reno is one of the most trafficked highways in the country, where girls are just brought up here all the time. And so we kind of both had this revelation that hey, this highway is used for trafficking and bringing girls into slavery. But today we're taking a girl out of slavery. We're using it as a freedom highway, and hopefully this moment for you is going to lead to, at some point, someday, being able to tell your story and help other people get out of it as well. And we cried, we laughed, we talked. It was intense. And I remember getting close, and it was the somberness started to come over, and we stopped talking. It got kind of silent.
Started churning.
We're just we're going into this situation. And we get to her parents' house. Her dad's a military guy. He was an E9, the highest civilian rank you can get. He's been in his whole life. And he was basically, what kind of protection do you have? Do you need to take a weapon or something? Because there's people watching her. There's people watching their street. There's people watching their house. You're not going into a safe environment. And I don't know what it was with me where I knew, the same way I knew that breakfast that one day I was going to be able to help her, I also knew that we were going to be fine somehow. So I just was we're going to pray and we're going to go. We're not going to take anything. We're just going to go. And I think we all prayed or something quick and drove over to the trailer, and he wasn't there. Nobody stopped us. Nobody approached us. Didn't see anybody. It was as peaceful and as easy as it possibly could have been. And I remember just walked into the trailer, saw our dogs, and
that was the hardest part.
My
dogs were 6 and 7 at that point. So it was it'd be easier if they stayed with him, because then he's not losing his whole world. We didn't take hardly anything. We took my clothes and anything that was related to my past prior to meeting him. We had my Honda,
Yeah,
and it was the back
wasn't
seat and the
much.
trunk, and we left 8 years worth of stuff for him.
And I think at one point I was like, is that it? Is that all we're taking? We're there for maybe a half hour. But kind of at the same time, we're like, we should probably make this quick and get the hell out of here. And, she didn't let him know either that we were there, didn't say anything because didn't want him to rush home and get there, and didn't reach out to him until after we left. We made sure to do it in a way to where we were going to go get all the stuff, leave, and then reach out to him to meet at a neutral location to have the conversation that she was not coming back, with myself and a couple other people there, so that it's in a public place. There's eyes all over us. Mm-hmm. We're not going to be alone and do this. One, for his sake, because I've been wanting to, beat this guy up for a decade. I don't know what I'm going to do when I see this guy. I don't know how this is going to go, but just for everybody's sake, we need to be in a neutral location. So Amanda kind of.
And so how are you feeling, Amanda, after, even getting there, starting to clean out your stuff?
Petrified. I was, because it got physical, and I put my foot down very in my own head that if it ever got physical like that, which is interesting because I let the bondage stuff happen. But that night was, nope, you hit me one time, I'm done. And I will stick to that the rest of my life. And I was so afraid that if he had caught us in the middle of the act, he was going to freak out, because at this point in our life, we were hanging out with a rougher crowd, and I have no disdain for motorcycle clubs and stuff. I love them dearly. My in-laws are very much involved, but we were working. He was part of a motorcycle club, so who's to know what he might try and do? What is he going to tell them? How are they going to react? So that's why it really was like a military mission, just get in, get out. And I just remember just like, okay, get that. Did I hear a noise? Okay, hurry, go. Okay, we heard a noise. Okay, now we're in another town. We can tell him that we're here. And so we met, I don't know what is with us in McDonald's, but it was a McDonald's again.
McDonald's is a big part of this. Not that we endorse their food.
Yeah, we're not being sponsored. But my sister and Stephen and I went. And my sister has obviously hated him from day one. And she's a taller girl, so she was several inches taller than him. So the whole time she's like, I'm going to whoop him. If Stephen goes, I'm going to get him too, because I've been waiting, and not an ounce of that happened. There was nothing violent. He was not an aggressor. They didn't have a chance to react. I was just telling him, look, I'm sorry, but it's done. I can't do this. And I started to cry, and he started going into I'll change, I'll be better, I'm sorry, I'll never hit again, it'll never happen, like we have this life that we can have together, and we have a family, and my family loves you. And he's like, you can't do this to the dogs, they can't lose their mom. And that kind of clicked, like, now you're using them against me. That's not okay either. Like, not that I don't love my pets, but in the long term of things, they are just dogs, and it sounds awful, but I can get another dog. I can't get another life. And I couldn't get out anything I needed to say after he started that. And so I think I kicked him under the table.
Had a pact on the way. Like, we're on the way there. We know we're meeting. I think Michelle was there. And then there was another couple that came, your friends.
They sat at the other table. Friend.
Yeah, the bigger guy. And then, so there was a couple other people as well, just for safety. But on the way, I was like, hey, how are you feeling? Like, how are you going to be able to say, like, all the stuff you need to? Because I feel like you're supposed to say it. But if you get stuck, I'll jump in. Like, I'm there for you no matter what. So you start and just give me a look, And I remember she started, and same manipulation tactics that pimps use, that abusers use. You're my princess. As soon as he starts going off on this, like, you're my whole world and you're my queen, I watched her whole demeanor just sink, where if this doesn't go right, she could just go right back into it in an instant, like using all the same sweet, like, you'd never think this guy would have ever hurt a fly the way he's talking, but I see right through that. And you're not going to do this to her, not this time. And I looked over and she just kind of like gave me the nod. And I stopped him and I was like, okay, it's my turn.
I think that's exactly what he said too.
I did. He knew. Like, he put his head down, kind of looked at the table, and I was like, here's the reality, Hans. You're a master manipulator. You are a liar. You programmed her. Like, I went for probably 10 minutes, like, detailing all the things and how he manipulated and lied and brought her into all this stuff. Kind of the whole story she just told in the book and on this podcast. Like, she went from this innocent girl to meeting you to doing all these things, and you manipulated her and you did the whole thing. Like, you're a terrible person. You're like, it's disgusting. She's divorcing you. You're not going to reach out to her. You're not going to talk to her. You're not, like, if you do, you're going to have a problem with me. And several, so I don't remember what I said. It was something along the lines of like, this is it. And your gig is up. The gig is up, bro. Like, we see right through it and you're done. And he didn't say anything. Like, he knew.
He was silent.
He knew, like, his control. It's almost like weightlifting. Like, if you're doing a deadlift, you're lifting a heavy bar and you've got this grip on it. And you know when the grip's starting to go, you're starting to shake and and then it just drops. It was like he was there. He lost it. He knew.
He started crying.
Something clicked. He actually started crying. And I was like, that's it. We're leaving. Like, and you're going to let us go and we'll make sure you get the paperwork. And we all went outside. And this was like the weirdest part looking back for me. Because I've fantasized about hurting him for a long time. And like what I would do if I ever was alone with this dude in a parking lot. And then we're in this McDonald's parking lot in Central California. I'm like, I've seen this on TMZ. I've seen what happens next. But something clicked. Like, everybody got in the car except for me and Hans. And I remember I'm standing behind the car. Her and Michelle get in and they're like looking like, what the heck? And I'm looking at this guy with his head down. And I saw him for a moment, like God does. I saw him as an 8-year-old kid getting abused by his dad. And it broke me. And I looked at him and I was like, hey, and I told him, I just saw you as an 8-year-old kid getting abused by your dad. Like, I said a lot of rough things in there and I meant it. Like, we're going to have major problems if you ever talk to her. But at the same time, like, God does love you too. And he knows that you were abused and that you now abuse because of that and you don't know how to get out of it. But I want to pray for you if you'll let me. And he walked over and he put his head on my shoulder and cried on my shirt. And we prayed and I gave him a hug, and I'm pretty sure I gave him my phone number, and I was like, if you get the need or the urge where you feel like you need to reach out to Amanda, you can reach out to me. Like, but don't talk to her ever again. And he gave me his word and kind of stood there for a minute and walked away with his head down. And I felt like I was in La La Land. Like, how did that? That's not how I pictured this going at all in my head. And I remember getting in the car, sitting down, and both her and Michelle at the exact same time just whoosh, whipped their heads around like, what just happened? And I told them, and we all cried and went back to her parents' house and started a fire and burned a bunch of her old clothes.
Yeah.
And pictures.
And pictures. And we burnt a lot of stuff. And then, for the most part, Hans did keep to his word. I mean, he didn't call me. He showed up several times. Because after I came back to Reno, decided I'm going to move forward with things with Miguel. I moved back in with my parents. My dad got me a job at his company being a janitor. I got an additional second job and was starting to be on my feet. And he didn't want to be divorced, and he showed up at my parents' house several times, like, let me talk to her. I just want to talk to her. And at one point, my dad was sleeping with a loaded gun under his pillow because we just didn't know. There was a time I remember hiding in the bathroom with the shower on because my dad was telling him, she's in the shower, you're not going to talk to her. And it was escalating so much that I was actually scared of what was going to happen. I wasn't going to talk to him. I just couldn't face him, didn't have the strength. And then he had the audacity on our divorce papers. We had to fill out financial stuff because we hadn't been married long enough to need a full-blown divorce, but we had disclosed finances. And he listed my Miguel's mom and dad as his reference for work. Yeah. I was like, you're an idiot. They hate you, but whatever, And so it was little things like that. Like, you still are not getting it. And so we go through and we're going through the divorce. Paperwork comes back. Miguel and I have decided, we're gonna be a thing. We got a puppy. Done all the new things. It's been 6-7 months because in California you have to wait a 6-month separation period before they'll finalize the divorce. And my mom called me, and she had those papers in her hand, and we had like the best celebration dinner ever. And a few months later, I get a call, and it's Hans, and he says, I'm applying for my guards card, and they're going to call you for the background check. Being his ex-wife just makes sense. And he says, do not mention the industry. Do not tell them about the motorcycle clubs. Don't tell them that I've ever smoked. And so I agree. I say, okay, whatever. They call me. And that was the turning point. I was like, that is it. He's lost his control. I told him everything. I said, I can't tell you if he's smoking now. He smoked when we were together. I said, and I'm not gonna lie to you. I am not a nice, friendly ex-wife. And the guy tells me, I saw the date. I figured this wasn't going to be a nice reference. And then he tells me, Hans has also listed your father as a reference because, like Stephen mentioned, my dad was a very high-ranking military man, and he thought it would be an honorable reference. Again, not grasping that he's doing anything wrong. So like Stephen said, I think he really is broken. And I didn't see any of this until actually today when he started talking about the abuse from his past. And maybe that could be why. I've never tried to figure out why he did what he did. Only why did I let it happen? And my dad obviously left a phenomenal reference. He called me afterwards and said, I will not tell you what my conversation entailed. But I did tell him a lot of things, and that if it was up to me, he would be in jail right now. And he said he messed up. He will not be getting this job. And that was our moment of, he's done. There's no control. I get to be Amanda again, how I want to be. And I mean, I've been with Miguel 10 years now. Hans has reached out one time to see if I could take our other dog because he couldn't home it. And that's it. I cut everybody off when I divorced him. People break up, you pick the girlfriend, boyfriend side. I didn't give anybody a chance. I just left because I was so done with that life. I went back to my family and my girlfriends from high school back into my life. I let them back in. Over the years, I had people kind of randomly trickling and you're like, hey, giving your space, just seeing, can we still be friends, this and that. And obviously I don't live in Sacramento anymore, so we're all social media friends, but a lot of them have said, we're really happy for you. We didn't want you to be in that. And the couple that we wife swapped, they're both now divorced and married to somebody else. A couple other of our friends at that point in time got divorced. And I was just like, what was I doing? Was I like this random glue that was holding all this weird craziness together? And when I saw a sense of normalcy, it was shattered. And so here we are. I released the book this year. I am a mom of 2. I've been blessed with my babies. All those things that I thought God was never going to let me have. Miguel and I own a home. We have our own goofy dogs. Several of our friends, or my friends from back in the day that were a part of the story without realizing they were a part of the story, have now reached out to me and said, we've read your book, and I'll tell you, my stomach fell to my feet because I still have that fear of how is Hans going to react when he finds out about this story. Am I ready for that conflict? But I'm telling the God's honest truth. I'm telling my truth. It may not be his truth. These events happened. I mean, there's literal documentation of all this stuff. Why am I worried about what he thinks anymore? And several of my girlfriends have apologized to me and said, we didn't realize all of this was going on, and I wish we tried harder to be an ally. I'm so sorry you went through this. And these are girls that were seeing me on a day-to-day, and they had no idea that this was going on. How did I know this was going on?
That's a perfect segue into your book here. So we're because I want to actually go into a couple things, and if you guys want to add more, we can talk about that as well. But I want to talk about your book and what's your goals for this book, and where do you see it going? Even your next book that you talked about, and then I also want to help other people in this situation, women, teenagers, because you obviously it started when you were still in high school.
Yeah. And
so I want to kind of be able to close it out by giving some advice, giving some direction to people that may be in the exact same position or someone you can help. And Stephen, same with you. Like it's obvious that it took someone else to assist in this to happen.
Right.
It's like a fulcrum point where that lever came down, but it only came down because someone else stepped in. So I want to talk about that as well. So first, let's find out about your book. Again, it's called Lusting After Love: Caught in the Bright Lights of Darkness. And where can people find this?
Right
book?
now, you can find it on Amazon. So if you just Google the exact title, it's on Amazon. It's paperback and ebook. I wasn't fortunate enough to do an audiobook yet. It's a much bigger process than I realized. And so that's where that is. I have started rewriting to do a more uncensored version because several people that have read it, including some that actually work with heat, have asked me to release a more detailed version. And like you said, how am I going to help people? The more detailed version will reach to the girls that are stuck because, like she said, if you're too square, they're not going to believe that you lived it. They're not going to read the details that I just gave you. Like the assault, for example. We just say, my roommate was right, I was assaulted. All those details are not there. I think people picture assault as bam, 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 violent. Well, maybe it's not for these girls or these gentlemen. It could be either way. I just say girls because that's what I went through, and maybe just hearing those little details will be like, wait, I'm not the only one. Because for a long time, the only time I would even mention any of this was to confirm to someone, hey, you're not alone. People you don't even realize have gone through things. If you met me today, I'm opening a retail store after we leave here today. I run Etsy stores. I'm homeschooling my kids. Like, you would have no idea that this crazy skeleton is in my closet because that's not who I am. And it doesn't have to be who you are if you don't want it to be. So reaching out to the people, I want to read just a little bit of the dedication because I do dedicate to those people stuck. So I say, thirdly, to the Lord, although I did not see it at the time, he was watching over me as I went through the darkest times of my life, and he brought me out. He has given me this story to share in hopes to reach those he knows need to hear it. And lastly, to those who feel like life isn't worth it, that there's no other option and they can't do any better for themselves than what they're doing, it's not true. You can still have an amazing life. Please don't give up hope. I was going through my own hell on earth, and that's different for all sorts of people. I felt isolated. I felt alone. I felt vulnerable. I felt hopeless. But that's not who I was. Like you said, when that lever went down, it was like somebody lit a fire under me and I was done and I was getting out no matter what. It doesn't have to be you reach out to Awaken, or even I'm going to go as far as like PTSD, addictions. You don't have to find an organization to help you. You can just find a friend who's willing, like Stephen, to be a friend. And when the time is right and when God puts them in your life, he helps slam that lever down and reiterates, you're never alone. It feels like it. But God is in your heart. Just like my husband told my daughter when she had a scary noise the other night in her room. God is in your heart. He's never alone. I go to church now to praise him and thank him and worship him because he never actually left me alone. It's not a physical being sitting next to you, but that presence is in your heart. That presence is on your shoulders. There's an angel and a devil there always. You don't always have to listen to the devil. Don't let that snake get in your ear and steal your joy. Don't give up. There's people out there that are going through the deepest, darkest parts of hell on earth, and you'd never know it because they put on a front. Let that front down. Go help somebody who you think you can help, because in turn, you're helping yourself. Find somebody that can help you help yourself.
Well, obviously, God directed someone specific. And so, Stephen, what do you want to kind of let people know? Because obviously that was the thing.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. One of the best things I ever heard was an organization say, stop for the one. Like, you don't have to go out and change the entire world, but everybody out there knows, whether it's somebody being trafficked or, you know, somebody who's addicted to drugs, whatever it is, everybody knows one person that they can probably help. And help doesn't look like judgment. Help doesn't look like telling people what they're doing wrong, which I think a lot of the times Christianity or the church messes that part up. A lot of the time people just need a hug. They need somebody to tell them that they're loved. They need somebody to really just say, hey, I see you, and I'm here for you whenever you might need it. So I think that's the challenge in the call. What can you do to stop for the one, the one in your life, or somebody that you know needs help? And if you're the person that's stuck, man, like, you're not alone, even if it seems like it. Not everybody's abandoned you. I know some of you may not have somebody in your life like me, or like somebody that actually does care about you, because a lot of people are just totally abandoned. But there's still hope. It doesn't mean that you're a lost cause. You're still worth it. And if you have to do it all by yourself, you're still capable of getting out. And you're worth it. So do that for yourself.
And contact me. If you're somebody that needs somebody to listen, like I said, yeah, I have a lot of stuff going on, but I will always stop. I'll put my email, I'll give you my email. Email me. You want to get your story out and just have somebody listen? If you're not ready to make that change, you're not ready to make that change. But if you are, maybe I can't help you, but I know people that work with organizations that give resources to people. And like I said, it doesn't have to be just trafficking. I have a large family here that has had a large network in the area. And like Stephen put me in direct contact with the lady that founded Awaken when I asked to put the statistics in the back of my book. We have contacts. Maybe I can just point you in a direction. I only wrote the book because as a janitor at my dad's office, they did a communication seminar. And the lady that ran the communication seminar was from Texas, her main focus happened to be helping trafficked victims. She told me to write down my timeline. And when I wrote down my timeline, she was appalled, honestly. And she said, but you need to therapeutic journaling. So that's my big suggestion. Write it out. Even if it doesn't go anywhere, write it out and get it out of your chest and out of your heart and out of your head. And when I started doing that, she told me this phrase, and I want it to resonate with people the way it resonated with me. I'm not a survivor. I'm a thriver. And that has always been in the back of my head. I'm always pushing to do something better, almost to bury my past in a sense, but to prove that I'm not this worthless piece of nothing. I am worthy of God's love, and so are you.
If there is any, because obviously that was a great way to kind of close this, was to actually speak, because you spoke to somebody, both of you spoke to somebody directly.
I hope so.
I know that. is there anything else we can finish off with that you guys want to, put out there before we end this show?
No, I can't think of anything. I mean, outside of the, listing resources, if it is a trafficked type situation and you want help out, I know there's Awaken here in Reno, there's Exquisite in Carson City, and Scarlet Hope, I believe, is here. The Reno PD works with victims advocates that I'll be sitting down with them and telling them my story and helping them, because they told me you don't hear a lot of girls pulling themselves out like that with psychological. And even my uncle sent me a post from Hookers for Jesus, and January is Trafficking Awareness Month. And I didn't know that. Ironic timing that my book got rewritten 3 times and we were able to release it in January, but the statistics on the post said 1% of victims get out alive. Let's make that not 1%. Let's get the 99% down and just reach out to those organizations. Even if you're not ready, they can help you start to be ready.
Yeah, there's nationwide, like Hookers for Jesus is out of Vegas. A21 is a worldwide organization, and Exodus Cry is another nationwide organization. So as far as like resources, there's plenty out there. The only other thing I guess I'll say to wrap it up is like the full circle of the story. One of the best days of my life was being at Amanda's second wedding to Miguel and getting to watch her walk down the aisle in a white dress that symbolizes purity and a brand new start. I think our whole family cried. I remember they got married and got done, and it was speech time, and I stood up, and everybody kind of was like, uh-oh.
We're going to cry.
We're all going to cry. And I just, I don't even remember what I said other than, I can't even fathom that we're here, that, you're getting remarried and you're a brand new person, and, your past is completely gone and washed away. And, to see the full circle of not being at the first wedding, being heartbroken at where she's at, and then being part of the process to bring her out of it, and then watching her get remarried to this awesome dude that I care a lot about, that's just a perfect dude for her. And then, her 2 kids that are, they're with my kid right now while we're recording, hanging out and playing. Yeah. It's just, God's real good. Real good.
I will add a little random side note. It's in the book that Miguel wasn't raised as religious as I was, and part of us growing as a couple is in 2016 he dedicated his life because of me leading, and I rededicated my life that same day and felt like I got washed clean. So not only did I get out, but I helped bring him to the Lord as well.
So what really stuck out, in these conversations is the symbolism. Stephen, you talked about the white dress, purity. After all that, and then there's this symbol. And then the Freedom Highway.
Yeah. Amazing
symbolism. Very touching, very touching.
There's a lot of symbolism throughout.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I appreciate, Amanda, you being great about telling your story. I appreciate you, Stephen, for adding your portion here, because I think it really is bringing something to light here that is so out of control. We need something to bring a spark or bring some light into a dark situation. And, I love that we're all part of this. This was awesome.
Thank you for having us and giving me the opportunity to get this out there and hopefully helping some of that 99%.
Yeah, thanks, Clint.
Yeah. All right, guys. Okay, again, this is Clint Armitage with the Radio Coffee House, and we just finished an awesome long format episode. And if you didn't get to hear all of it, make sure you listen back and listen to it a couple times, 3 times. Forward it to somebody. Share this with everybody, because someone is going to be touched, someone is going to be moved, and God's going to use it to help somebody. So until next time, stay safe and God bless. Thanks for joining us for another episode of the Radio Coffee House Show, where we're all about Jesus, coffee, and radio. We'll see you next time.